This is a very important hearing, of course, just based on the issue, but I think, as you have pointed out, Senator Udall, there are concerns that seem to be across the board here, regardless of where you're from, whether it's up in Alaska or down in the lower 48 here, concerns about the waiver process being burdensome and costly. And you say that there's a way around that. The issue of the regression analysis, and you're saying that the door is open. That sounds good, but the meeting that I had before lunch today to understand a little bit more about what was going on with Arctic Slope Telephone, the data seems to suggest that there's 2,000 miles of road up in the Arctic Slope Telecom area, and I was stunned to learn that, because in fact there's not, it may be closer to 200 if it's that. And so it seems clear that there are some issues here that need to be addressed, that there are data errors that need to be followed up with. And so I appreciate your very open door policy, but in the meantime, you've got some small telcos, at least in my state, that are feeling like they're on the ropes right now, that when they don't have the level of predictability that they clearly need, they're concerned. They're coming to us and saying, how are we going to be able to hold on? And so for me to be able to tell them, well, I hear that the FCC has an open door, that's not giving most of my folks much comfort. So we need to figure out how we're going to get through this. Let me ask a couple questions here of you, Ms. Clyburn.
Yes, ma'am.
With the Alaska telcos, how much do you figure they would lose due to reform? And if the answer is we don't know at this point in time, how can we expect these companies to sustain their businesses without access to the projected financials? And this goes to what the chairman was discussing about the lack of predictability. How can we help them out there?
Well, many, numerically, broadly speaking, many of the companies will either see no or a bit more of an infusion of dollars because, again, of the savings and the predictability that we put forth.
But how do they know whether it's a little bit or a lot?
We have some. I've got some enumerated figures that. Right at this point that I could submit to you that maybe my nerves are getting the best of me that I can't put my hands on right now. But there is, again, ongoing engagement. A lot of these entities do know exactly, I think I put forth that a number of companies will get an infusion. So if you give me a second, I will be able to get that exact figure. So, you know, I apologize for not having, but most of the entities that we have been engaged with, the worst case scenarios are around a 10% impact as it relates to this. Those are among the worst figures that I've seen.
Well, I think what is important is to have a clear understanding in terms of what we're dealing with. They need to have those projected financials upon which to base sound business decisions. I guess the question would be what the FCC intends to do then to protect the investment of our small rural carriers, many whom have taken on quite substantial long-term debt to build out services. And Mr. Adelstein, I know I'm running out of time, but I want to ask you the same question here. As we deal with the issue of these loans that I think we've demonstrated have been proven to be a pretty effective tool for our rural telcos to gain access to capital. But how do we protect this investment here? That again, these are small carriers.
Right.
These are small carriers that have some pretty considerable costs. Now you inject the uncertainty in.
Well, one of the things in the high-cost support fund that we did was, even though the numbers don't sync up numerically, you are right. We recognize that those small carriers serve an important role. They serve consumers that deserve no disruption. So their $2 billion of the high cost fund will go to ensure that there is sustainability and predictability from that point. I did do have my figures here in terms of Alaska rate of return carriers. Only 2 carriers were capped. Only 2 carriers were capped, and we expect that the remaining 15 of the 17 rate of return carriers will actually see an increase in their high cost support during this year. And so there, I know, again, there is some worry, and worry does come when we have...
It's beyond worry.
No,
it's
well, concerns, significant concerns, because again, we are talking about monumental change here. But again, there are protections in place if the companies believe that their service delivery will be adversely impacted. We have a waiver process that is engaged in an open process that we have streamlined, that is that we encourage them all along the way with engagement from us to take full advantage of. And again, I know there's frustration, I know there's uncertainty, but we had to embark upon this path in order to sustain a system that everybody agreed was broken.
Well, I would agree that it was broken, but I think what we're hearing from the smaller companies is that the big guys are never going to serve the folks out in the service area.
And that's why that $2 billion, half of that high cost fund, will remain at this point in time in those areas where in those rate of return areas, even though numerically most of the people who are unserved are outside of those areas.
I think it sounds wonderful on paper. I'm not convinced, and I don't think our smaller telecos in Alaska are convinced that this waiver process is going to be there, that what you are suggesting will be adequate to serve the needs of those who are so desperate in their needs, and they have been long ignored. They've been taken care of by these smaller telecos, and now I think everyone is feeling like they're on the ropes. My time has expired. I understand we'll have a chance for another round. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.